Chapter 16. Naruto, Desert Flower. Sunagakure no Sato. Suna Main Stadium. The stage for the finals of the Chunin exams was set as the buzzing of the crowd anticipating to see the young talent of their villages waited eagerly. The betting counters were taking bets with their respective people going through the crowds with several betting charts for people to place their bets from their seats and in between the matches. One half of the stadium was filled with the crowd from Suna, while the other half had various other villages' audiences and various people there to witness the biggest co-hosting of the Chunin exams in history. It was the first time that the Big Five had decided to send their candidates all together in a single crop pool. The daimyos and various other dignitaries sat in their own personal VIP stands as they looked at the best arrangements they had ever seen at such a big event with a huge smile. Several ANBU were flanking the stadium hidden in their covers watching with hawk-like eyes, ready and prepared with several orders in case any of the possible scenarios arose, as was the order by their military commander. Up in the stands 4 of the 5 Kages sat in their seats with their official hats over them representing their respective villages with pride. Everyone waited with bated breaths for their Kage and the main host of the finals to arrive and start the big event. Humph, these young people, no respect for punctuality. I knew it, he was too young to be a Kage. Grumbled the Tsuchikage, making the Mizukage giggle. Oh come now Tsuchikage Dano, there is still time for the ceremonies to proceed, and with the preparations that I've seen for now he seems to be quite a capable leader if I do say so myself. She said, making the man grumble that he should be here before time as the Raikage spoke up. I wish to see the talent that Suna has been hiding. I hear they have trained quite a few capable shinobi, but the news has been slim since their defense systems were upgraded. He said, and Tsunade smirked under her hat, waiting with her breath held for the one person she was waiting to get a glance of for the first time in 3 years. She knew she might even cry if she saw him in front of all these coots, but she couldn't care less as she tuned their voices out and kept looking around for the face with 3 whiskers and sun-kissed blonde hair that was completely missing, which annoyed her to no end. So Hokage Dano, aren't you curious too? Asked Mei, and Tsunade looked at her surprised as she hadn't heard her really well. Mizukage Dano, you say something? She asked innocently, making Ao behind her to chuckle lightly when a dark aura surrounded her as she turned her glance to the man who gulped. Ao, shut up or I'll kill you. She said sweetly, making him sweat and shiver, and for Tsunade to sweat drop, while she turned her gaze back to the stands to find the familiar mop of blonde hair. Meanwhile, in the stands for the Jounins, Temari stood in the stands in an elegant white kimono, with blue desert lilies at the bottom near her thighs and her shinobi equipment strapped on. She had her large battle fan and a seal in her wrist, courtesy of Baka blonde husband, that she didn't have to carry it around everywhere on her back. She had 2 small fans in her sleeves, always at the ready for any kinds of problems. She had chosen this particular color for her clothes to match it with her husband's perfectly, and had her hair in a usual loose bun that Naruto had grown quite fond of in the past few days, seeing her do it like that, and she didn't have the heart to refuse him anything. She leaned on the railings with a soft sigh, wondering where he was or what surprise really he had for her. From his grin she knew it was most likely going to be big, but she wanted him with her by her side, and his arm around her waist like he always did. Speaking of problems. Hey there, beautiful. She heard the flirtatious and annoying voice of that thrice-damned Uchiha, and didn't even bother to scowl in his direction, let alone give him any indication she had heard him, which annoyed him to no end, but he forced it down. That is the fire he loved in her so much anyways. Come on, why the long face? I'm here now, aren't I? He said sweetly, coming beside her, and tried to wrap an arm around her waist when Temari's eyes glanced at him dangerously. He saw it and shivered at her icy look, but decided to go ahead anyways when he felt 2 slices on his palms, drawing blood, and yelped, shaking off the blood, and looked at her shocked. Keep your hands to yourself, Uchiha, no one touches me beside my husband. You understand that? She asked icily, hiding her small fans by shutting them close with a flick, and in her loose sleeves of the kimono, turning her eyes to the stadium, not looking at the horror-stricken and wide-eyed gaze of the Uchiha. Husband, he stuttered out in a rare instant while she sighed tiredly. He was just too damn annoying, and she had half a heart to stuff her battle fan in his mouth just to shut him up. Yes, husband, I was married to my fiancé a couple of weeks ago. Now shut up and keep your eyes on the stadium instead of me, she said in an irritated tone while he stood stunned at her words, and a moment later he grit his teeth and activated his Sharingan. Where is this husband of yours? He asked angrily, and she looked at him with a raised eyebrow at his tone and his bloodline that he had activated. He'll be here. Why, what do you want with him? She asked coldly, and he smirked. Oh, I'll show you how much of a mistake you made marrying that useless sand shinobi instead of an Uchiha, an elite. Then you'll see a princess like you belongs with me as the Uchiha matriarch. Don't worry, I'll forgive you for your mistake easily, and let you make it up to me, he said sweetly, and she stared at him blankly as if he was stupid. You just don't know when to quit, do you, Uchiha? She asked, and was annoyed at the way he looked her up and down like he was undressing her, making her feel uncomfortable before he smirked. Not when the prize is so good, he said smoothly, and she sighed. So you wish to fight him? She asked, trying to get his attention elsewhere before the last Uchiha lost the thing that made him a man. He nodded, much to her surprise, and a giggle escaped her lips, startling the Uchiha, who smiled at hearing her angelic voice and soft giggle. That I would love to see, I just can't wait for it. It would be priceless to see the last Uchiha get his ass handed to him in a fight and take you down a notch or two, she said in giggles, making him furious. She wanted to tell him who he really was, but poking him like this was just too much damn fun. You think he can beat me, the last true heir of the Sharingan? He asked furiously, and she laughed harder, much to his annoyance. Of course he can. Maybe your brother might be a good challenge for him, but you. She trailed off in giggles as her stomach hurt from imagining a blue and black Uchiha with Naruto standing in front of him with just a little hard breath. Oh, she couldn't stop her giggles. Meanwhile, Sasuke hadn't been this humiliated in his life. He saw how she found it hilarious, and even had the nerve to say he was nothing compared to his brother. Just as he was about to say something, the rest of the contingent from Konoha came, and Temari greeted them with a forced smile like the rest of them, and Sasuke went silent in the back, standing beside her by the railing. He glanced at her small smile, and the way a lock of hair was coming near her eye, and her perfect hourglass figure that he noted in with his Sharingan. She was perfect for him, born to be his wife. He would show that no-name loser who he had managed to tick off, he mused furiously. He wanted her strong attitude, those looks, the possibility of strong Kekei Genkai in his future children, and her royal blood. Yes, he would have her even if he had to beat that husband of hers to the ground, he mused venomously. Every leaf shinobi there saw his unusually large scowl, and the little bits of killing intent he was releasing with the small glances he sent to the way of the Suna princess. Sakura looked down in sadness and shame seeing those glances. Kakashi and Jiraiya stood beside her, noting how she didn't even spare them a glance, and Jiraiya coughed to get her attention, and got a small glance showing he had it, and smile. Temari, I must say that the preparations were done really well, he said, trying to start a conversation, and all he got was a small nod with a smile, making him sigh. Kakashi decided to make some headway as they were told to get to talk to her and make her know how nice Konoha could be for her. So Temari, how is life in Suna? He asked, and I smiled when he saw her head turn to him completely with a raised eyebrow. She clearly wasn't expecting that question and mulled over it for a minute. Suna, she thought as the desert and sand came to her mind, her early not-so-good childhood. But then the thought of her blonde baka came to her mind, and how he had turned her world upside down. From changing her brother completely to the point of capturing her heart, she just couldn't get enough of him. A pretty pink blush spread across her cheeks as she thought of how he would hold her, and she would snuggle for his warmth with a giggle. She still felt afraid since the incident last day, and didn't understand if he had really forgiven her, or just said it like that, and was still holding it in him. But the last kiss he gave her when they were leaving came to her mind, returning her blush and smile, making her look at the Kage box where Gaara had just made an entry with a fond smile. I love it, wouldn't exchange it for anything in the world, she said in a happy tone, making Jiraiya and Kakashi glance at each other, and sigh as they too turned their gazes to the now completely filled Kage box. Up in the Kage box, Gaara entered the personal space to host the 5 Kage with Baki and Kankuro along his back as his personal bodyguards. Every Kage turned silent and turned their eyes towards the Kazekage, who was hosting the year's exams. Tsunade was the first to break the uneasy silence. "Greetings Kazekage Dano, you are just on time," she said with a smile while Inoki grunted, begrudgingly agreeing with her. Gaara nodded politely and took his seat in the center with Tsunade and Mei to his right, while I and Inoki to his left. "I'm sorry, but some last-minute talks with the council came up," he said formally, and they all nodded, knowing the council meeting's problems, especially Tsunade, who thought of the old coots that were coiled on their council seats like slithering snakes. "No worries, you are just on time Kazekage Dano, but I must say these are the best exams I've ever seen, even if they are my first as Kiri's representative Kage," said Mei, and he nodded with a smile, and he turned to I, who gained his attention. "Yes, I must say you are a strong leader Kazekage Dano. I've seen the order and obedience as well as the proper conduct of the shinobi in Suna, and I must say for one so young you have kept your forces disciplined like they should be," he said with a hint of respect. He always thought that shinobi should view their leaders as they should be and how to be in conduct. He was a strong leader himself and respected the young man to have trained them so well. "I really am grateful for your compliment Raikage Dano, but it isn't me who has kept them on such a tight leash of respect and order," he said, making all the 4 Kage raise their eyebrows. "What do you mean? You are the Kazekage, so you lead them, isn't it so in your case?" asked Inoki, completely bewildered, and Gaara smiled and nodded, making his confusion to increase. "It is as you say Tsukikage Dano, but I have taken off a lot of burden from myself to take a closer inspecting at the diplomatic damages done in my father's reign," he said, making the short man nod, but not lessen any confusion. Mei was happy that Suna was trying to accept its past mistakes. She would do it too if necessary, and try and forge a new way towards an alliance, she mused, trying to think of a way to strengthen her weakened village. "I do not understand Kazekage Dano, what do you mean taken off a lot of burden?" asked I. He always liked things to be straightforward and simple, and was getting confused at his cryptic words. "I have handed over the control over my shinobi forces, including my ANBU corps, to a new military commander appointed by me, and the complete favor of the council. He still reports to me and has to gain approval of the council, but most of the military affairs are handled by him personally, shedding off my burdens tremendously," he said, making them all go wide-eyed and Inoki to almost faint. "So much control even if you watch over him, was it really wise?" asked Inoki, and Gaara smiled and nodded. "I trust him, the council trusts him, and most of all he has the respect of my forces down to the last man. They would follow him into war if he says so, and his loyalty to the village is unquestionable," he said, shocking them further, and Tsunade found her voice overcoming her shock. "That is some trust and loyalty to have such favor Kazekage Dano. He must have done something quite impressive to have such trust from you," she asked, thinking how she couldn't imagine a single person in her village who had the backbone and trust that she could do the same for. The others thinking along the same lines, and Gaara nodded, looking over the half of Suna-filled stands with a smile. "Yes, over the past 3 years he has become a vital part of the village, and going through the ranks like they were mere steps of stairs. I have offered him my hat many times, but he doesn't like the paperwork," he said, getting chuckles from all 4 when Mei caught on to his words. Gaara was happy that all of them were talking like this, and didn't mind giving out such trivial information if it helped solidify their trusts and a chance to at least be neutral if not allied with them. "Gaara Dano, you said just over the past 3 years, was he not a part of your village before then?" she asked curiously, and much to their disbelief he shook his head, gaining stupefied looks from all of them. "No, Temari found him almost on the verge of dying in a small village in our lands when she was on a small mission. She brought him here and I offered him a position in my ranks. He accepted, and after rigorous training, and after many actions that strengthened the village and united them, he gained respect from everyone to the point he is at today. he said with pride, gaining nods as well as a whole new level of curiosity from them. I though was interested in only one thing. He must be quite strong then, he asked curiously, and Gaara nodded, seeing Kankuro rub his but muttering about temperamental insane blondes, and he stifled a chuckle remembering the day he and Kankuro ran through the village wreaking havoc. He is the best Suna has to offer, and I have no shame to say that in a straight fight I myself am no match for him. His skills are way above my own. As long as he is here I know my village is safe, he said, gaining dropped jaws from the four. To have such respect and strength above a Jinchuriki and an acting Kage was something else. I knew the strength the Jinchuriki held, and knew how he had complete control, just like his brother, so he must be quite the man. Tsunade though was a different story. Her face had become completely emotionless, and behind her mask her mind ran a mile a second. 3 years ago, Temari found him, Gaara trusts him, he changed so much. She was starting to have a guess of who he was and turned her eyes to Gaara, who saw her look and knew she was close to figuring it out. He just sent a small smirk and a curt nod in her direction, making her eyes widen in shock and for her mind to go blank. Where is he, Kazekage Dano? I would like to meet this man you speak so highly of, he asked, making Gaara smile widely, gaining curious looks from the three except Tsunade, whose mind had locked in on itself. You will see him in a few minutes. After all, I have appointed him as the proctor of the finals, he said, gaining nods from all of them, and Tsunade had her eyes glued to the entrance to the field to catch the first glance of her blonde Gaki before anyone else. He must be so big now, she mused and wanted to cry but kept her stoic mask up, perfectly waiting for the time she could get him alone and crush him to death in her hug. Gaara stood up, seeing the time and the whole stadium's expectant looks towards the Kage box, and channeled chakra to his throat to make his voice boom in the stadium. People of Sunagakure and our esteemed guests from various other nations. He started gaining the attention of everyone. A lot of buzzing and excited murmurs to break out of the crowd. All the rest of the Kages were happy at seeing their people in the other half of the stands, so happy and excited even though being in a different village. This year is the first time in the history of the hidden villages that the Great Five have come together with a team in the same exams, and will show the world the prowess each of our villages hold. So please give a round of applause to show your support to your prospective genins, he said, pointing to the nervous genins, and gained claps from all around and cheers that their villages were the best, making him smile. So as the Godame Kazekage of Sunagakure no Sato, Gaara no Sabaku, declare the finals of the Chunin exams to begin, he said, gaining hoots and cheers from all the stadium, and held his hand up. Everyone stopped and lowered their cheers a bit, seeing his image holding a hand up on the big spectator's screen, and watched him curiously as to what was remaining. He smiled in amusement and spoke up. Well, before the cheers again, we cannot have the finals without a proctor now, can we? He asked, and gained laughs from all over the stadium, including the Kages, that they had cut him off before he could call the proctor, and he smiled and spoke up. So for this year's finals, I call upon Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, our very own military commander, and my dear friend, as the proctor for the finals of this year's Chunin exams, he said, and was amused as the whole stadium turned deathly silent. He saw the wide-eyed looks from the half-holding the audience from the guest villages, and the dropped jaws of most of the elder Jounins in the Jounin stands. He turned around to see Baki and Kankuro holding back their laughs on the back, and saw Mei, Anoki, and Ice mouths opening and closing, but no words were coming out. He saw Tsunade's still blank face and her intent narrow eyes to the closed gates of the field, making him smile as he took his seat. Mei was the first of them to break out of her stupor and stuttered out. Did you just say Namikaze? She asked in disbelief, and looked at the owlish eyes of Ai and Anoki, and much to their horrors nodded with a smile. The gates to the field opened and in walked, much to their horrors, almost a perfect replica of the Yondaime Hokage, only with a blue cloak donned instead of his red, and those 3 whiskers on each of his cheeks. Naruto walked calmly out into the stadium, towards the middle, waving a hand through his unruly hair, making the hearts of most of the women in the stadium swoon over those cerulean warm eyes. It can't be. whispered that Sasuke, seeing the perfect reincarnation of Minato Namikaze standing in the middle of the eerily quiet stadium. The bodyguards behind him were moving their mouths with no words coming out when the crowds from Suna erupted in cheers. Namikaze-sama. It's him. He's so hot, I wish I had him to myself. He's so cool, and he's the proctor, man I wish I was a genin this year. Naruto-sama. Leave Temari Heim and marry me. Naruto-Namikaze. The cheers rang throughout the Suna side of the stadium, while Naruto stood arms crossed and eyes closed to let the commotion to calm down with a small smile. Temari meanwhile had the urge to kill several females in the crowd, and was growling a little while flicking out her fans. Why couldn't those sluts see he was hers now? She thought, fuming when she saw Naruto's one eye open and directly meet her gaze, and a little smile on his face. She blushed as he gave her a wink and became the center of attention of nearly 1,000 people. That idiot. Now everyone's staring. Oh, he looks so cute, and he doesn't even glance at those hussies. That's my Naruto-kun, she squealed inwardly, though was just blushing on the outside, and had resealed her fans completely. Ah, rang the sound of many females in the stadiums with envious eyes towards Temari, making her turn a scarlet red and glare at them to tell them he was hers and hers alone. Sasuke meanwhile stood there frozen. The dobe was still alive, and was apparently the husband of the Suna princess, but what really caught his eye and envy was the respect and admiration he was getting from the people. Why couldn't he, an Uchiha, an elite, not get such appreciation, while the loser, who he made the village throw out, was getting it? He looked at Temari to see her look at the man in the middle look at him so lovingly, with a warm blush making him seethe in jealousy and anguish. What have you done to earn so much respect and the love of such a girl of royal blood, Naruto? He thought, gritting his teeth. Jiraiya and Kakashi meanwhile had their jaws on the ground along with every other elder jounin. How could I have been so blind? He's sensei's son. Stuttered out Kakashi in disbelief, seeing his sensei, and the closest thing to a mother's son, standing in front of him looking like a carbon copy of them both, especially with that cloak, and those two words embossed on his back made their eyes widen. The word flash rung through each and everyone's head. How did he find out? Stuttered out Jiraiya, and everyone turned to him in shock and disbelief. You knew, screamed Kurenai, Asuma, and Guy at the same time, but didn't get any response from the man who was frozen, still looking at the calm and collected form of the blonde standing in the middle. Sakura had tears in her ears and a million-watt smile. As soon as she had seen him, she had tuned out every word. He was still alive, now she didn't have to carry the burden of his death anymore, and her bright baka Naruto could come back with her. Meanwhile Neji and Lee were smiling, while Neji was stopping his teammate from jumping in to give him a hug to bask with his friend in the springtime of youth. Kiba was the first one who formed a coherent question, breaking out of his stupor. Hey, who's this Namikaze fella? I thought Naruto's last name was Uzumaki. Was he adopted or something? He asked, and every rookie now thought the same thing when they heard a last sigh. Troublesome, muttered Shikamaru with an amused smirk, watching Naruto. You always were troublesome, Naruto, but this is a whole new level of troublesome even for you, you troublesome blonde. And on top of that you married another troublesome blonde. Sigh, troublesome, he thought, watching the blonde, and then rose an eyebrow as almost every head on the stand turned to him, especially the rookies, making him nervous. What? He asked, breaking the silence, and got looks making him look stupid, and sighed tiredly. Troublesome, he muttered, getting bonked by Kiba. Will you just get to the point of who this Namikaze is and why almost half the stadium is staring at him in horror, or in some cases bloody murder? He asked, getting nods from everyone as they pointed to the stands holding the IWA and Kumo audiences inside. You people never really did hear history lessons, did you? He asked tiredly, getting sheepish smiles from everyone when a rude remark came in. Will you just get to the point already, Nara? Said the Uchiha through gritted teeth, making Shikamaru smirk. Why are you so anxious today, Uchiha? He asked suggestively, getting a death glare when he pointed to the blushing Temari, and nodded. What was the name of the fourth Hokage? He asked, getting stupid looks from everyone when Sakura spoke up. She always did pride herself for her academics after all. Everyone knows his name beside you, you lazy baka. His name was Minato Namikaze. She trailed off and Shikamaru smirked seeing the saucer-wide eyes of everyone, and nodded looking back down at the stadium. Exactly, he said answering all their questions with just one question, and got stupefied looks from everyone when Sasuke spoke up. There is no way a clanless loser, a dead last like him could be the son of the fourth Hokage, he sneered getting a frown from the Nara heir. Well if you wouldn't know Uchiha. He started getting a glare from the small nitpicks of the Nara, who promptly ignored them, and continued. To take over the name of such a powerful and respected clan, one must have legitimate proofs about their lineage. It is clear that he must have provided those to the Sand Council and the Wind Daimyo before he was allowed to take up the name officially. You should know the charter of clan laws better than anyone, oh so noble Uchiha, he said with a smirk making Sasuke release his killing intents on the lazy Nara, who just shrugged them off when all of them were startled as they heard a voice boom in the stadium from the Kage box. There is no way I believe he is the son of Minato Namikaze, my only rival and respected friend from Konoha, he shouted getting the attention of Naruto, who just gave him an annoyed look making him furious at his silent rebuttal making him look like a fool when he heard several people laugh. Say something damn it, he shouted and Naruto threw another annoyed look and decided to say something before he blew a gasket. Believe what you will, he was my father and I am his official heir, he said calmly making his temper go through the roof. Before C or Darui could stop him he jumped off the Kage box and into the field making everybody gasp. Then I'll just see if you are his son or not, he shouted gaining terrified looks from everyone as the two Kage-level shinobi stared each other off.
Alright guys, that's gonna be part 16, I believe. Yes, 16 of What If Naruto was abandoned by the leaf and taken in by the sand. Thank you guys so much for all the support on my previous videos, and if you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and if you want any other kind of what ifs, like what if Naruto had the Rinnegan, or what if Naruto was in Suna, like uh stuff like that, just let me know, because I don't really know what if I should do next. So just let me know, please. Thank you guys so much for all the support. And I think I'll do I mean, we're growing so fast. Sorry, I had to get a drink of water. I can do a face reveal if y'all want to. Let me know in the comments if y'all want a face reveal at like 500, 750, or 1,000. I don't know. I might do 1,000. Yeah, I'll do 1,000. Thank you guys so much for all the support. 105 likes on this part to get the next one. And, I think the next video I'll be doing is What If Naruto Was the Red Flash Part 4. Please go and check that out. And I hope you enjoyed. See you guys in the next part.